statements that I've read today and comments that you've heard from your constituents as you've traveled your great state, a state of great expanse and a state of close to 30 million people. What similarities do you see between these statements and those that you've heard around your state?
I thank my friend from Utah for that very insightful question. And let me note, there are many reasons why I love the senator from Utah. But very near the top of the list is the fact that when he, quote, paraphrases the Federalist Papers, it is darn near a word-for-word verbatim quote. Mike Lee is extraordinary, and it is an honor to stand by his side and serve with him. The stories you've read are exactly consonant with the stories I have heard all across Texas and, frankly, all across the country. This thing isn't working. It's not political. It's not partisan. It has nothing to do with what team you're on. The facts are clear. There is a reason why the unions are jumping ship. There is a reason why Teamsters President James Hoffa says Obamacare is destroying the 40-hour work week that is the backbone of the American middle class. There is a reason why the IRS Employees Union has asked to be exempted from Obamacare. These are the guys in charge of enforcing it on the rest of us. They've asked to be exempted because it's not working. The facts are clear. It's a train wreck. As the lead author, Democratic senator, put it, it is a train wreck. And in fact, let me share some of the tweets that have come in the preceding days. The preceding days, the American people had a chance to speak out about Obamacare, and in particular, there was a hashtag, defund Obamacare because. In the last several days, Americans all over this country have tweeted their reason why Obamacare should be defunded. And I will note to Senator Lee that some months ago he and I stood on the same Senate floor side by side with our dear friend Senator Rand Paul, supporting him in his historic filibuster on drones. And at that time, I had the opportunity to read tweets that were supporting Rand's filibuster. And to the best of my knowledge, that is the first time tweets had been read on the Senate floor, which I have joked to my wife makes me happy, because now 20 years from now, if there is some obscure political geek Trivial Pursuit game that I'm pretty confident I'm going to be an answer as to the first person to have the chance to read tweets on the Senate floor. And I'm going to do my best now to be the second person. And now I'm reading tweets that concern the hashtag defund Obamacare because, but I will note there has been another hashtag tonight, make D.C. listen. And that hashtag has been trending higher and higher, make D.C. listen. And as the evening goes forward, I fully expect for those of you who have something that you want to say, but you're not currently able to come to the Senate floor. Maybe in a few years you will be. Maybe you'll be elected to the Senate and stand at your desk and make the argument, but right now you're not. Let me encourage you to tweet with the hashtag #MakeDCListen, and I expect later in the evening to read a sample of those tweets so that we can help provide voice to those millions of Americans who are frustrated that D.C. isn't listening. But these are some of the tweets of the past few days with the hashtag defund Obamacare because. It's just another way to gain control over people. Defund Obamacare because I don't want the government dictating my health care. Because I don't trust the government to run my health care. Because it was sold to us on lies. You can keep your insurance? No. My coverage reduced to nearly nothing. Premiums the same. Because it's too intrusive on our privacy. Because it's killing jobs and stifling the economy. Because it's forcing small businesses to lay off full-time workers and replace them with part-time workers to avoid bankrupting mandate. Because Congress should be representing us, we the people, a majority of Americans, don't want Obamacare. because it adds layers of government inefficiency, centralizes control to ivory tower bureaucrats, massive drag on the economy, because it will lead to single-payer health care. Single-payer is all caps and care is in quotes. Bad, 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 bad. Because it's not even implemented yet, and it has already raised my insurance rates and reduced the quality of my medical care. Because cancellation notices from my carrier due to ACA kind of ruin the narrative, like it, keep it. Bombs away on ACA. Because I don't want the government deciding my family's health care. Because the cost of health care will increase with quality decreasing. Empower the free market. Because it is a threat to jobs and our economy. Because I got laid off. My chances of finding another job are slim too. None now. Because it's time people in D.C. do what's best for this country instead of their political party. Let me read that one again. Because it's time for people in D.C. to do what's best for this country instead of their political party. You know, if we listen to the people, if we make D.C. listen, this wouldn't be about party. This wouldn't be about Democrats sticking to the bill they passed. This wouldn't be about Republicans afraid of political blame and repercussions. This would be about 100 senators listening to the people and saying this bill isn't working. Because it kills jobs and the backbone of the American middle class. Because it's killing free clinics and reducing access to care. Because Americans love freedom. Because it's a job-killing machine, up to and including doctors. Because I don't want government to control my health care. Because the free market works and government regulation does not. Because Americans can't live on part-time wages and pay the outrageously high cost of Obamacare. Because it violates Americans' First Amendment right to religious liberty. Because we the people don't want it, and the government works for us. Let me repeat that one again. Because we, the people, don't want it. And the government works for us. And let me note something, by the way. That hashtag was a simple hashtag, defend Obamacare because. That's the message that's coming from the people. Washington isn't listening. It's why tonight, make D.C. listening is trending higher and higher as a hashtag, because that's what this fight is about. Washington isn't listening to the people because it has already resulted in great doctors leaving medicine. Because government is not meant to force me into something they have no business in. Because I'm against force and coercion from government. If it was a great idea, it would be voluntary. Now that says something. If it was a great idea, why is the federal government forcing you to be a part of it? And by the way, why at the same time is the president granting exemptions to big corporations and to members of Congress? If it's a great idea, they wouldn't have to force you to participate. And if it was a great idea, members of Congress would not have asked the president for an exemption so that members of Congress get a special rule that doesn't apply to the American people. Because I don't want bureaucrats involved in my physician's decisions on my health care. Because I value my freedom. Because it's ruining the 40-hour work week, according to unions. Because it is crony capitalism for the health care industrial complex. Because you don't want a bunch of bureaucrats deciding which medical treatments you can and can't receive. What do they know? Because the government should not is in all caps, own our medical data. Because the IRS will be enforcing it. Now that's a pair that gives you great comfort. The IRS in charge of it. The IRS employees unions publicly asked for them to be exempted from Obamacare. And right now they're assembling the largest database in history of our health care records. We've seen the IRS their willingness to abuse their power. And under Obamacare right now, they just have access to our health care records, so it's not like anyone should be concerned about that. Because it is a job-killing, economy-destroying, health care ruining, debt-exploding, out-of-control government mess. I like that one. Because it is a job-killing, economy-destroying, health care ruining, debt-exploding, out-of-control government mess. Because Obamacare is all about socialistic control of we the people and nothing to do with, quote, fixing health care. Because it was rammed through in the dark of the night, and that should matter. Because it has already come between me and my doctors and it's not even fully implemented yet. Next time you see your physician, you want your friendly neighborhood federal bureaucrat sitting down and being part of the physician's meeting? I don't. And I know that Texans don't either, most Americans don't either. Because it's a Trojan horse. Once inside, it will destroy us. Because even the unions agree it's not working. Because we need the IRS to get out of our lives, not make health care decisions for us. Because it'll cost Americans their jobs. Because it's a red herring being used to move the country to single-payer system. Now, as we noted earlier, that's not, some people dismiss, oh, single-payer, this is designed to go there. That's just crazy tinfoil hat-wearing stuff. But, there's an old saying, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. And yes, there are people worried about single-payer, but you know what? They have every good reason to be, particularly when the majority leader of the United States Senate goes on the television and says the purpose of Obamacare is to send people into single-payer system, government-provided socialized health care. That is the express purpose from those who voted for Obamacare, to destroy the private health insurance system and to move to single-payer government socialized medicine. Because honestly, the people do not want it. Because problems cannot be solved by a larger government than the one that created them. Because after 3 years, they're still trying to sell it to us. Now that's a good point. If it were such a great idea, don't you remember at the time they said, gosh, once people get it, they're going to love it, it's going to work. And you know what? If it had, we'd be having a very different discussion. If it had worked, the American people would support it. We'd see the results. We'd see the benefits. And we wouldn't have this debate. If it were working well, we wouldn't be having this debate because the American people would support it. The facts are clear. And so even those who voted 3 years ago, unless your view of serving in office is, hey, once I vote, I stick to it no matter what the facts say, no matter how much people are hurting, no matter how big a disaster it is, I ain't changing no matter what. Now, I can't believe there are many senators in this body that want to approach voting like that. That's not a responsible way to approach your job. The facts are clear. This thing isn't working, and all 100 of us ought to act to avert this train wreck. Because it is and will continue to destroy jobs, slow hiring, and move others to part-time status. Because if you don't, your doctor might just retire early. How many know a doctor that's retiring early? I know quite a few that are retiring early. Think that's good for our health care system, seeing doctors retire early? I know older doctors who are advising young students, don't go to med school. Think that's good for health care? Think that's going to expand our health care if we don't see bright young students going to medical school? That's what Obamacare is doing. Because you don't want an IRS agent deciding if your mom lives or dies. Because it makes health insurance less affordable. My premiums will be higher to subsidize people who can't afford insurance. Because even the unions don't want it. Because the IRS has shown they're willing to abuse power for political gain. Because it's not about care. It's about government control. Because I shouldn't have to pay for the murder of innocent unborn babies through abortion. Because if it worked, Democratic senators would not have needed to be bribed to vote for it. Because the death panel is an unchecked bureaucracy accountable to no one. Because I love my current health care and doctors. Do you like your current health care? Do you like your doctor? Do you want to keep seeing your doctor? Well, I'll tell you, Americans all over this country are losing their health care because of Obamacare. They're losing the ability to see their doctors. That's what happens if the Senate doesn't act to defund Obamacare. Because the majority of the country is against it. Because premiums up 100% after dropped-off spouse's plan. Elimination of meds coverage, reduction of choices and treatments. Now look, these are real people tweeting. They're sharing their stories of why they don't like Obamacare. Now you notice these stories are not because I'm a Republican, because I'm a Democrat, because I believe in this ideology. It's because this thing is hurting me and my family. If this body were listening to the people, we'd have 100 senators concerned about all the Americans being hurt by Obamacare. And here, at any hour of the night, ready to act to stop it. Because no one wants to live in their parents' basement forever. Because Reagan once said, you can't be for big government, big bureaucracy, and still be for the little guy. Boy, ain't that the truth. Because I don't want to pay more taxes to fund it. Because it does nothing to reduce cost while hurting many full-time employees who are dropped to part-time. Because it makes health insurance less affordable, my premiums will be higher to subsidize people who can't afford insurance. Because it actually does add a dime to the deficit, and a lot of them. Because, 3 words, and this is in all caps, internal revenue service. Because it's killing full-time jobs and stunting the growth of businesses that want to hire. Because government should not be in charge of something as important as health care. Because the devil himself wouldn't put the IRS between you and your doctor. I like that one too. Because the more exemptions that are given out, the more Obamacare won't work. Because I can't afford to get 2 jobs, pay outrageous prices for crappy insurance. I'll lose my full time. Because that time Congress passed a law and then excluded themselves. Hashtag healthcare hypocrisy. Because doctors and hospitals are already becoming limited. Because it's designed to collapse private insurance and force us all to single payer. Socialism. Again, I would note that's not hypothetical. That is what Majority Leader Harry Reid has publicly said on television. Because insurance isn't very helpful when you can't find a doctor. Because I don't need to spend a decade of my life filling out government forms. Because baby boomer doctors will retire in droves, plus more who won't practice in this environment. Because if it's not good enough for Congress, it sure is shooting not good enough for the people. You know, those are sentiments we're hearing from all across the country. Those are sentiments that reflect the views of the American people. Not just in Texas, in all 50 states. Not just Republicans, Democrats, independents, libertarians. The American people understand that when you have a law that is killing jobs, when you have a law that is hammering small businesses, when you have a law that is forcing people into part-time work, into working 29 hours a week, when you have a law that is causing skyrocketing insurance premiums, when you have a law that is causing more and more people to lose their health insurance, you have a law that's not working. You have a train wreck, as the Democratic senator who's the lead author of this bill described it. And yet right now, the United States Senate is not listening to the American people. The Democrats in the Senate, understandably, have circled the wagons. They passed this bill, and even if it's a sinking ship, we have yet to see Democrats come out and say, we tried it, and it didn't work. Let's listen to the American people. I hope the time comes this week where we see some courageous Democrats stand up. And let me say to any Democratic senator who does so, he or she will receive withering criticisms from the partisans in your party. Now, I will note as someone not entirely unfamiliar with receiving withering criticisms from one's own party, there are worse things in life. I promise you that is, in the order of things to be worried about, really quite low. You know, I'm a lot more concerned about a single mom working in a diner trying to feed her kids than I am about whether some United States senator or some congressional staffer wants to run to a newspaper and say something mean about me. So any Democratic senator who's thinking about responding to the concerns that I know you're hearing from your citizens, because we're hearing it all over the country, let me suggest a little bit of grief for breaking party discipline is really a small price to pay for doing your job, for listening to the American people. And let me say to the Republicans, there's a lot of concern about political blame. There's a lot of concern about, well, if we would just get a symbolic vote so we can all say we're opposed to it, but let's not actually do anything to change Obamacare. Let me suggest to my Republican friends that we should worry a lot less about blame and credit and politics and just worry about fixing the darn thing for the American people. If we get back to an economy where jobs are booming, where small businesses are thriving, where people who are struggling and want the American dream can get that first job, can get that second job, can climb the economic ladder, can advance, provide for their family, that answers a whole lot of problems. You know, I've heard some partisan observers say, Obamacare really isn't the biggest job killer in the country. Well, number one, it's ironic that that's the particular debate about whether it's the biggest job killer or only the second biggest job killer. But let me tell you, I don't think there's any debate on that question. So let me point to you a list by Investors Business Daily of 300 cuts to work hours or jobs. So if you don't believe that Obamacare is the biggest job killer in the country, look to the facts. This year, report after report has rolled in about employers restricting work hours to fewer than 30 a week, the point where the mandate kicks in. Data also point to record low work week in low-wage industries. And it's low-wage industries in particular because the people that get hammered by this, it's not the CEOs, it's not the rich. The rich have done just fine under President Obama. It's hardworking American families, it's people who are struggling, it's young people, it's Hispanics, it's African Americans, it's single moms. They're the ones who are losing their jobs or being forced to work 29 hours a week. Investors Business Daily compiled a list of job actions providing strong proof that Obamacare's employer mandate is behind cuts to work hours or staffing levels. As of September 18, 2013, their Obamacare scorecard included 301 employers. The state of Alabama, Houston County, or Houston County. In Texas, we pronounce it Houston. Cut the hours of part-time employees to fewer than 30 hours per week. In California, Biola University cut student work hours to a maximum of 25 per week. Suspended the limit due to the employer mandate delay. So now that's an interesting thing. They'd cut it, and then when the employer mandate delay kicked in, they suspended that limit. You want to understand cause and effect, look to the behavior, look to the suffering, look to the job losses that are coming as a direct result of Obamacare. Florida, Beal's department stores restricted part-time hours to fewer than 30 hours a week. Florida, SeaWorld Entertainment. Any of you ever taken your kids to SeaWorld? They cut hours for part-time workers from a maximum of 32 hours to 28 hours a week. That's SeaWorld. That's a big employer. Illinois, Palmer Place Restaurant, cut hours for some workers below 30 hours a week. Kansas, Salina Family YMCA, cut part-time employee schedules to a maximum of 25 hours a week. New Jersey, Middletown Township Public Schools, cut hours for paraprofessionals below 30 hours per week. The great state of Texas. Actually doesn't say great state on the list, but I view that as implied. Sam Houston State University, limiting student work hours to 29 per week, impacting multiple job holders. Michigan, Auburn Hills, reduced hours for part-time seasonal workers to fewer than 30 per week. Pennsylvania, Friendship Community, cut part-time hours below 30 per week. And that, by the way, is a group home for adults with disabilities. So not only are the folks at Friendship Community working to help adults with disabilities, but they're getting their hours cut. That's their penalty for making a difference in their community. Michigan, Meridian Public Schools, cut schedules of hourly workers to fewer than 30 hours per week. Arizona, Arizona State University, limited course loads for non-tenured associate faculty members. Maine Subway, the Subway franchisee, reduced worker hours to no more than 29 per week. New York, Finger Lakes Community College, capped course loads for adjunct faculty. South Carolina, Tsunami Surf Shops. I like the name of that. That's a surf shop with an attitude. Will limit workers to fewer than 30 hours per week. Illinois, Southern Illinois University, limited graduate teaching assistants to 20 hours a week. Indiana, Vincennes, cut the hours of part-timers to 29 per week. California, the Mexican-American Opportunity Foundation, cut the hours of employees working up to 39 hours a week to less than 30. And talk about a real impact from this law. Georgia Military College, cut the hours of adjunct faculty to below 30 per week. Illinois, the Subway franchisee, reduced hours for hourly wage earners to below 30 per week. Indiana, Ball State University, limited work hours for graduate assistants. New Jersey, Toms River, will cut part-time hours. North Carolina, Forsyth Technical Community College, reduced hours for adjunct faculty to below 30 per week. North Carolina. Wilkes Community College, reduced teaching loads to below 30 hours a week. And let me just go through a few of these that are much the same. Texas, Consolidated Restaurant Operations. Texas, Dave & Buster's. Pennsylvania, Philadelphia University. Virginia, KVAT Food Stores. Missouri, Three Rivers College. Alabama, the University of Alabama. Capped student work hours at 20 per week. You know, that may in fact be justifiable punishment for their having beaten Texas A&M. But it's still not good for the students who would like to work more than 20 hours a week. Florida, Brevard County. Florida, Buca de Beppo restaurant chain. Florida, Hillsborough Community College. Florida, St. Petersburg College. Georgia, Cherokee County School Board. Indiana, Hancock County. Indiana, Morgan County. Michigan, Central Michigan University. New Jersey, NEMF Trucking Company. North Carolina, Henderson. Ohio, White Castle. We read a letter from White Castle earlier today. They used to open 8 new restaurants a year. They reduced it to 2. Think of all the people that don't get jobs because there's no White Castle open. Not to mention all of the hungry college kids that at 3 in the morning are just craving a White Castle. and they can't find one. Oregon, Sherry's Restaurants. Pennsylvania, Carnegie Museum. Tennessee, Oneida Special School District. Tennessee, Scott County School System. Tennessee, Stewart County School System. Texas, Jim's Restaurant. Virginia, Christopher Savides Restaurant and Catering. Wisconsin, Minocqua, Hazelhurst, Lake Tomahawk School District. Wisconsin, Trigg Supermarkets. Alabama, University of North Alabama. California, Fatburger. Now there's truth in advertising. Iowa, Lee County. Michigan, Delta County. Texas, B County. Idaho, Boundary County. North Carolina, Rutherford County. Pennsylvania, Lawrence County. Michigan, Kanoa Hills Public Schools. New Jersey, City of Burlington Public Schools. Texas, the Lion and Rose British Restaurant and Pub. Texas, MTC Restaurant Management. Utah, the Millard School District. Arkansas, the Area Agency of Aging of Western Arkansas. Arkansas, Walmart Stores, Inc. Anyone heard of them? Increased temp share of workforce to fewer than 10%, from 1 to 2% before this year. California, CKE Restaurants. The list goes on and on and on. Every one of those, I read the first, 50, 75 of the 301. It's all over the country. It's every state. Now, a lot of folks in this body may say, well, that doesn't impact us. What's the problem? You serve in the Senate, your salary is guaranteed no matter what. Besides, we're exempted from Obamacare, so what's the concern? That's official Washington for you. What's the problem? Look, government is a boom business. You look at the counties surrounding Washington, D.C., they are booming. Why? Because government's growing, growing and growing and growing. But every place that I just read, there are men and women working. And almost none of them are wealthy. Almost none of them are fat cats. Almost none of them are, as the president likes to invoke so often, millionaires and billionaires. 22-year-old kids. Some who are recent college graduates, some who dropped out of high school. But they're trying to work. They'd like to make a better life. And they're not able to do so. They're not able to do so because of Obamacare. Every one of those names, and listening to those names, it was easy even to zone out. Oh, another name, those are just empty names. Every one of those names, there are men and women and their kids who are suffering because of that. You've got a job, you're working hard, you're trying to provide for your family, and you're told, congratulations, you're working 29 hours a week. Courtesy of the United States Senate and Obamacare. You don't talk about a failed law. Now, in the last election, young people voted overwhelmingly for the re-election of the president. And indeed, some of my friends on the Democratic side of the aisle believe that a new dawn has arrived, that young people will remain permanently Democrats and thus keep a Democratic majority in the Senate for time immemorial. I'm not convinced of that. But I will say it's interesting. You could not design a law to do more damage to young people than Obamacare if you sat down and tried. If you sat down and said, let's really pound the living daylights out of young people, you couldn't do it. We'll talk later tonight about premiums that are going up, especially on young people. Because one way to understand Obamacare is it is a massive wealth transfer from young, healthy people to everyone else. So if you're young and healthy, Congress looked at you, licked your chops, and said, you're for dinner. But not only that, The people who are getting their hours forcibly reduced are overwhelmingly young people. They're people who are starting their climb on the economic ladder. And if you don't get that first job, you don't get the second, you don't get the third, and it impacts you for a long, long time. You know, just recently, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal that I think is relevant for every young person to read because it explains how Obamacare is impacting you not just today, but for decades to come. I think young people have a particularly acute desire to see this Senate act this week to defund Obamacare because it's young people paying the price. So, but don't take my word for it. Take the Wall Street Journal. On September 19, 2013, the Wall Street Journal had a major article that was entitled "Wanted: Jobs for the New, quote, Lost Generation." If you're a young person, you should feel excited. There's now a title for your generation, the lost generation. Now, I mentioned if you were trying to design a law to hurt young people, Obamacare, you couldn't do better than that. Well, it's produced a lost generation. Here's what the Wall Street Journal said. Like so many young Americans, Derek Wetherell is stuck. At 23 years old, he has a job, but not a career, and little prospect for advancement. He has tens of thousands of dollars in student debt. And let me note, I know what student debt is like. It was only 2 years ago I paid off my student debt. I had to take out student debt to pay my way through college, through law school. There are a lot of young people right now struggling to have student debt. I'll tell you, you combine student debt with a dead-end job or not being able to find a job at all, and it is a recipe for a lost generation. So Derek Wetherell has tens of thousands of dollars in student debt, but no college degree. That's becoming more and more common. People take out loans to get a college degree, but they don't end up finishing. They're not able to finish. He says he is more likely to move back in with his parents than to buy a home. You know, the American dream used to be everyone wanted to buy their own home, have a white picket fence, have a swing out front that your kids can play on. You know, that was our parents' dreams. That was their parents' dreams. That has been the American dream for generations. Ask young people, how many of you feel that dream is a realistic prospect for you? It was for your parents when they were your age, and let me tell you, the policies that this Congress has put in place because we're not listening to the American people are a direct cause of that. Obamacare is a direct cause of that. Well, Mr. Wetherell says he is more likely to move back in with his parents than to buy a home. And he doesn't know what he will do if his car, a 2001 Chrysler Sebring with well over 100,000 miles, breaks down. Is there anyone else in America that has a car that's 12 years old with 100,000 miles that's wondering what happens if you wake up one morning and turn the key and nothing happens? If you have a good job, if you're climbing the economic ladder, if you've got career prospects, you can deal with that. If you're stuck in a dead-end job and going paycheck to paycheck, that's a huge problem. Quote, "I'm kind of spinning my wheels," Mr. Wetherell says. We can wishfully think that eventually it's going to get better, but we really don't know, and that doesn't really help us now. There are millions of Americans who feel exactly like that. Mr. Wetherell is a member of the lost generation, a group that is now only beginning to gain attention from many economists and employment experts. So young people should feel particularly privileged that you've coined a new term for your generation, the lost generation, because of Obamacare and the policies of this administration. From Oakland to Orlando and across the ocean in Birmingham and Barcelona, young people that have come of age amidst the most prolonged period of economic distress since the Great Depression. Most, like Mr. Wetherell, have little memory of the financial crisis itself, which struck while they were still in high school. But they were all too familiar with its aftermath, the crippling recession, which made it all but impossible for many young people to get a first foothold in the job market, and the achingly slow recovery that has left the prosperity of their parents' generation out of reach. perhaps permanently. Quote, "This has been for quite a while now a hostile environment for young people," said Paul Taylor, Executive Vice President of the Pew Research Center, which has studied the impact of the recession on young people. This is all they've really known. The financial crisis that struck 5 years ago this month opened up a sinkhole in the U.S. economy that swallowed Americans of all ages and backgrounds. Retirees lost life savings, families lost homes, millions of Americans lost their jobs. 5 years later, that hole is being filled, however slowly. The unemployment rate is down to 7.3% amidst slow, steady job growth, although, as we noted earlier, that 7.3% vastly understates it, because so many have given up looking for work altogether. The stock market has rallied to new highs. Home prices are rebounding. Total output has surpassed its pre-recession peak. But the recovery has left many young people behind. The official unemployment rate for Americans under age 25 was 15.6% in August, down from a peak of nearly 20% in 2010, but still more than 2.5 times the rate of those 25 and older, a gap that has widened during the recovery. In other words, it's gotten worse for young people during the past few years. Moreover, the unemployment rate ignores the hundreds of thousands of young people who've taken shelter from the weak job market by going to college, enrolling in training programs, or otherwise sitting on the sidelines. Any of y'all know anyone, any of y'all right now doing that, going to school because, gosh, jobs are so lousy, maybe I'll try to do something in school and maybe things will get better? Well, if Obamacare keeps hammering small businesses so they don't hire new workers, so they keep reducing hours, the prospects for things getting better are not very bright. Even those lucky enough to be employed are often struggling. Little more than half are working full-time, compared with about 80% of the population at large, and 12% earn minimum wage or less. Let me repeat that. For young people who are working, little more than half are working full-time. If you're a young person, if you're hoping to start a career, being forced into a part-time job because of Obamacare is a big problem. The median weekly wage for young workers has fallen more than 5% since 2007, after adjusting for inflation. It's getting worse for young people. For those 25 and older, wages have stayed roughly flat, so it's young people that are really getting hit by this. Let me ask young people, what urgency do you see in the United States Senate? The floor of the Senate filled with senators saying there's a crisis with young people, let's step forward and help them get jobs? Nope. You've got senators who've got very busy calendars. There are cocktail parties to go to. Responding to the crisis that young people are facing is not high on the priority of enough members of this Senate because Washington isn't listening to the people. That's why the hashtag is trending, Make D.C. Listen, because we need to make D.C. listen. This generation's struggles have few historical precedents, at least in the U.S. So y'all should feel excited. You've made history. Although unfortunately not for a good reason, because the government has put policies in place that have so hammered small businesses, they've created a job market that makes life incredibly difficult for young people. The recession of the early 1980s was comparable, but was followed by a rapid recovery. Well, gosh, what happened in the early 1980s? President Ronald Reagan was elected. He implemented policies the exact opposite of this administration's policies. Instead of jacking up taxes by $1.7 trillion, as this Congress has done and this President has done, President Reagan slashed taxes and simplified the tax code. Instead of exploding government spending and the debt, President Reagan restrained the growth of government spending. And instead of unleashing regulators like locusts to destroy small businesses, President Reagan restrained regulation. And the result was incredible growth. For young people who've never known anything other than these abysmal economic conditions, there is another way. Every time we've implemented pro-free enterprise policies of restraining taxes, restraining regulation, reining in out-of-control government spending and debt, the result has been small businesses have prospered and thrived. They created jobs, and the result has been young people. You can get jobs, full-time jobs. You can advance towards a career and towards the American dream. The economic legacy of the Great Depression was erased to a large degree by World War II and the boom that followed. No similar rebound looks likely this time around. What a crying shame. Wouldn't it be nice if this week we forced them to change that sentence? Suppose this week Washington, D.C. changed. Suppose this week senators in this body, Republicans and Democrats, decided we're going to do something we haven't done in a long time. We're going to listen to the people. American people say their top priority is jobs and the economy. Suppose members of the U.S. Senate said, hot diggity, our top priority is jobs and the economy. Suppose members of the U.S. Senate came together, Republicans said, we're going to stand together on cloture. On the vote on Friday or Saturday, all 46 of us are going to vote against cloture because Obamacare is killing jobs. It's the biggest job killer in this country. It's hurting the American people. And suppose Democrats said, you know, even though we supported Obamacare, we've seen how it's implemented. It's not working. It's a train wreck. The American people are hurting. And we're going to respond. We're going to respond to young people. The young people, by the way, that on Twitter, on social media, we're reaching out to all the time. You know what? Lots of politics is real interesting. But nothing is better for a young person than a growing economy and an opportunity to have a job, to work, to achieve the American dream. But yet the Wall Street Journal says no similar rebound looks likely this time around. I'll tell you what, if we act in an historic show of courage to defund Obamacare, that will change. What evidence does exist suggests that today's young people will suffer long-term consequences. Now, this is important. You may say, well, the job I have now is not great, but it'll be fine in a few years. Here's part of the problem. When young people are stuck in dead-end jobs, when you don't get opportunity now, it echoes throughout that generation for decades. One recent study by Yale University economist Lisa Kahn found that after the 1980s recession, new college graduates lost 6 to 7% in initial wages for every 1 percentage point in the unemployment rate. The effects shrank over time, but even 15 years after graduation, those who finished college in bad economic times earn less than similar people who graduated in better times. Some never caught up at all. So this stagnant economic growth, if you're a young person, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not just a problem now. If you don't see the Senate finally listening to the American people, finally working to bring back economic growth, the stagnant economic opportunities we have right now are likely to haunt the lost generation of young people for decades to come. There is an urgency that should have this Senate floor packed. You know what? A lot of men and women in this body have kids who are in that generation, and we should be horrified. We should be outraged that the future of young people is jeopardized. Mr. Wetherell, the son of an electrician, grew up in Imperial, Missouri, a very small town south of St. Louis, where job opportunities were limited even when the economy was strong, which it wasn't when he graduated from high school in 2008. He enrolled at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, juggled a full course load and a full-time job at a local grocery store, and tracked his near-constant commitments on a dry erase board in his room. Eventually, the schedule wore him down. He withdrew from school in 2011, though he says he still plans to complete his degree. He owes $27,000 in student debt, roughly his annual pre-tax earnings, with 3 semesters still to go. Mr. Wetherell is better than many of his peers, better off than many of his peers. He works at Schnucks, a locally owned supermarket chain, where he is a union member. And by the way, that is one of the reasons why so many unions that supported Obamacare are turning on it now. He receives health benefits and is paid $12.65 an hour. That is enough to cover $400 in monthly rent and $200 in student loan payments. But it leaves little left over for an emergency fund, let alone retirement savings. How many young people right now are able to save for retirement? That's something else that will echo for decades, because savings when you're young are most important for retirement, because through compounding interest they can grow over the years. Quote, "It's kind of unsettling not being able to put anything away," says Mr. Weatherall, a political science major. Even more unsettling, Mr. Weatherall has noticed that more and more of his coworkers have college degrees, some from well-regarded colleges like Washington University. What he had intended as a job to help pay his way through college has now turned into a destination for college graduates. Quote, "I think a lot about whether I'm ahead or behind," he says. "I really hope I'm not ahead." What does that say? When what used to be a part-time job that would help people pay their way through school becomes a destination for college graduates. You know, my dad was working his way through the University of Texas as a dishwasher and then a cook. That job is what let him get the education. How much different would it have been if after he'd gotten his degree, he had shown up and they'd said, "Let's start washing dishes"? Americans aren't the only ones asking such questions. I'm going to pause in this article because they are the joys of my life. I will tell you, the hardest aspect of public service is not someone saying something mean about you in the press. The hardest aspect of public service is being away from those little precious angels. Coming up here to D.C., I'll tell you, it breaks your heart on Monday mornings when you walk out of the house and one girl grabs one leg, one girl grabs the other, and they say, "Don't leave, Daddy." Well, right now, Caroline and Catherine are both at home, getting ready to go to bed. And they both turned on the television. They're both watching C-SPAN. Now, I'm going to confess, Caroline and Catherine don't usually watch C-SPAN, since there are far too few animated features on C-SPAN. But because the girls are watching, my wife Heidi is watching with them, I wanted to take an opportunity that I don't usually have when I'm in D.C., to read them a couple of bedtime stories. And they're watching right now. If you will forgive me, I want to take the opportunity to read 2 bedtime stories to my girls, but there's a point to this also. And the point is very simple. The urgency we have and should feel is because of our kids. It's because of the future that they're facing. It's because of the limited opportunities they have. So I want to read, first of all, to Caroline and Catherine, a book of Bible stories from the Old and New Testaments, which we often read similar stories at home. This one is entitled King Solomon's Wise Words, and it's from Proverbs 10, 11, 12, 14, 16, 17, 20, and 21. So Caroline, Catherine, King Solomon had good advice for how people could live a good life and be happy. Here are some of his wise sayings. Children with good sense make their parents happy, but foolish children make them sad. Sweetheart, you make your mommy and me very, very happy. You will say the wrong thing if you talk too much, so be sensible and watch what you say. I will have to confess to my colleagues that is not an encouraging proverb for someone in the midst of a filibuster. Kindness is rewarded, but if you are cruel, you hurt yourself. Try hard to do right and you will win friends. Go looking for trouble, and you will find it. Good people are kind to their animals, but a mean person is cruel. We trap ourselves by telling lies, but we stay out of trouble by living right. It's wrong to hate others, but God blesses everyone who is kind to the poor. Kind words are like honey. They cheer you up and make you feel strong. Don't trust violent people. They will mislead you to do the wrong thing. Even fools seem smart when they are quiet. I suppose that may counteract the other one. Good people live right, and God blesses the children who follow their example. Hearing and seeing are gifts from the Lord. The food you get by cheating may taste delicious, but it turns to gravel. And if you try to be kind and good, you will be blessed with life and goodness and honor. So that's the first story for Caroline and Catherine. The second one is what they know is my favorite story. It was my favorite story when I was a kid, and it's a story I love reading them. I actually don't get to read it to them often because we have a rule at home that they get to pick the books. For whatever reason, they don't pick Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham all that often. So I don't get to read it that often because I tell them, go pick the books you want to read, and I read it to them. But since tonight, girls, you aren't here, you girls don't get to pick the book, so I got to pick Green Eggs and Ham. And I love this story, and so I'm going to read it to you. Sam I am. That Sam I am, that Sam I am. I do not like that Sam I am. Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like them, Sam I am. I do not like green eggs and ham. Would you like them here or there? I would not like them here or there. I would not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. Would you like them in a house? Would you like them with a mouse? I do not like them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. Would you eat them in a box? Would you eat them with a fox? Not in a box, not with a fox. Not in a house, not with a mouse. I would not eat them here or there. I would not eat them anywhere. I would not eat green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. Would you, could you in a car? Eat them, here they are. I would not, could not in a car. You may like them. You will see. You may like them in a tree. I would not, could not in a tree. Not in a car. You let me be. I do not like them in a box. I do not like them with a fox. I do not like them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. A train, a train, a train, a train. Could you, would you on a train? Not on a train, not in a tree. Not in a car, Sam, let me be. I would not, could not in a box. I would not, could not with a fox. I will not eat them with a mouse. I will not eat them in a house. I will not eat them here or there. I will not eat them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. Say, in the dark. Here in the dark. Would you, could you in the dark? I would not, could not in the dark. Would you, could you in the rain? I would not, could not in the rain. Not in the dark, not on a train, not in a car, not in a tree. I do not like them, Sam, you see. Not in a house, not on in a box. Not with a mouse, not with a fox. I will not eat them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. You do not like green eggs and ham? I do not like them, Sam I am. Could you, would you with a goat? I would not, could not with a goat. Would you, could you on a boat? I would not, could not on a boat. I will not with a goat. I will not eat them in the rain. I will not eat them on a train. Not in the dark, not on a tree. Not in a car. You let me be. I do not like them in a box. I do not like them with a fox. I will not eat them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them. Sam, I am. You do not like them, so you say, try them, try them. And you may. Try them and you may, I say. Sam, if you will let me be, I will try them. You will see. And at this page, he is simply holding green eggs and ham on a fork, preparing to bite them. Say, I like green eggs and ham. I do. I like them, Sam, I am. And I would eat them in a boat, and I would eat them with a goat, and I will eat them in the rain, and in the dark, and on a train, and in a car, and in a tree. They are so good, you see. So I will eat them in a box, and I will eat them with a fox. And I will eat them in a house, and I will eat them with a mouse. I will eat them here or there. Say, I will eat them anywhere. I do so like green eggs and ham. Thank you, Sam I am. And I want to say to Caroline and Catherine, my angels, I love you with all my heart. It's bedtime. Give Mommy a hug and a kiss. Brush your teeth. Say your prayers. And Daddy's going to be home soon to read to you in person. And let me say more broadly to everyone, you know, green eggs and ham has some applicability, as curious as it might sound, to the Obamacare debate. Because 3.5 years ago, President Obama and Senate Democrats told the American people, just try Obamacare. Just try it. There were an awful lot of us, an awful lot of Republicans who were very, very skeptical of it. I think for good reasons, but very skeptical of it. And we were told, try it, try it, try it, try it. And through, unfortunately, an exercise of brute political force, Obamacare became the law of the land. But I'll tell you the difference with green eggs and ham is when Americans tried it, they discovered they did not like green eggs and ham, and they did not like Obamacare either. They did not like Obamacare in a box with a fox, in a house, or with a mouse. It is not working. You know, one of the oldest definitions of insanity is continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I understand why many supported Obamacare in the beginning, but if you look at the facts, if you look at the evidence, if you look at what is happening when the American people have tried it, it's not working. And if we listen to the people, if we listen to the American people, every one of us will stand together and say, we're going to stop this train wreck. Together we need to make D.C. listen.
Senator, yield for a question through the chair, retaining, of course, his right to the floor.
I'm happy to yield for a question.